Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and game collecting has gotten easier and harder at the same damn time. What am I talking about? Well, first of all, it's 2025, and we are way past the days of retro video game hype where everyone and anyone was either trying to relive their childhood or buy up retro video games because they felt like they could flip them for a quick profit. We're way past those days. Where we are is we're in a place where most of the people who wanted to build a retro video game collection, they've built it, and they've pretty much built it up to where a lot of them feel satisfied. They don't feel necessarily a need to add more. And even if there are games that they want to get, they're not in that same place where they're willing to pay crazy prices for it. The economy has shifted, things are different, and people have moved on to either real life issues, real life bills, or in some cases, they've moved on to other hobbies. So, because of this, it's less competition that you'll have when out game hunting. You won't have to deal with as many casual collectors, you won't have to deal with as many hardcore collectors, and most importantly, you won't have to deal with as many resellers. Because honestly, resellers are just not seeing the profit margins that they once saw. It no longer benefits them. They're not able to buy games at pennies on a dollar. The yard sales aren't even what they used to be. In fact, when you go to yard sales today, most mom and pops, or moms and pops, or even like young kids, they're aware of what these game prices are today. There was a time where you could go to a yard sale, and maybe if you ran up on a 10 to 12-year-old kid, they may not know what game prices are. But even if the kid doesn't know, you better believe that their parents are right behind them looking up the prices of these games on Amazon, on eBay, Mercari, this, that, and the third. So the days where you could just walk onto a yard sale and try to swindle someone out of thousands of dollars worth of games and pay them pennies on the dollar, those are quickly going away. I mean, I'm sure that there were people who were able to do it last summer. I'm sure there was a video or two of someone out there landing this crazy deal and picking up a bunch of games for super cheap. But that's not something that you're going to see in abundance in 2025, spring, summer of 2025. Now, I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong. And who knows, there may be a flood of videos where people are showing how they were able to snag all of these amazing games for dirt cheap, but that is not happening at the same pace that it used to happen. So, because of that, because of those reasons, I do believe game hunting is going to be easier this year for that reason. So those are the reasons why game hunting will be easier. Now, at the same token, game hunting is also going to be harder. Why is game hunting going to be harder? It's going to be harder for probably some of the same reasons that I just told you. It's going to be easier. Most people have the collections that they want, which means that a lot of the highly coveted and sought after games, they found a home. They found a permanent home. They found a home where they're going to stay, and they're either going to sit on a shelf or in a cupboard or somewhere for a collector who's not interested in letting that game go anytime soon. Most collectors, especially if you found a very rare game, if you found a highly sought after game, or if it's a game that maybe you spent a little bit too much money for because you bought it when it was at its high, most of those collectors are not going to be willing to part with those games. Usually because they're not hard pressed for cash, so it's not like they have to sell because they need the money. And 9 times out of 10, they really enjoy playing the game. So they're going to keep the game and they're going to play it. They're going to want to have it in their collection. Because of that, you're not going to see as much variety. I'm not saying that you're not going to see any video games out there in the wild. Obviously, that's stupid to even think that. Of course, you're going to see retro games out there. It's just not going to be in the same level that you saw in years past. You're not going to constantly be running into copies of Pokemon Gale of Darkness or Earthbound or any of those really rare games that everybody wants. Now, you're definitely going to run into your Grand Theft Auto Vice Cities and your Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and you're going to run into your Star Wars The Force Unleashed, and you're you're going to run into your Narutos, and you're going to find your Smash Bros. Wii U's. You're gonna find all of those games like that. And if you have zero game collecting at all, if you don't have a collection, those are awesome games to start building a collection with. But again, if you're a hardcore collector, 9 times out of 10, you already have a lot of those common games in your collection, and you're not interested in having multiple copies of those games. And so for that reason, it's not going to be as exciting for collectors to go out and try to see if they can find anything new, because they're going to feel like they're spinning their wheels. You're going to feel like you're driving around and around and around, finding very little quality games to add to your collection. So I think in that way, it's going to be more difficult just because the supply is not going to be there. The supply of games has greatly diminished. And believe it or not, in the last year, not only have games been bought or sold, but some games have just downright stopped working. Some games have broken down, whether it be from disc rot or the chips in the games just no longer working anymore, wear and tear, people accidentally dropping games, spilling soda and juice on games. There's so many reasons why a lot of these games could just break. And unfortunately, when they break, there's really no remedy to replace them. No one's in a factory continuing to make these games. Once they break, once they die, that's it. It's over. It's over for the physical aspect of that game. And the best thing that you can do is hopefully try to emulate it on some type of ROM. And so for all these reasons, I think this is what's going to make retro gaming a lot more difficult in 2025. Does it mean that people aren't going to try and pick up video games? No. People are definitely going to go out there and try to see if they can find some games. They're definitely going to hit the roads. They're definitely going to go to the yard sales and the pawn shops and the Game Stops. They're going to do everything that they can to try to get their hands on some games. And am I going to be one of those people? You're damn skippy. I'm sure going to go out there and try to see if there's a game that I can find, and I'm going to do my best to see what I can find in the wild. But GameStop is definitely becoming a resource for a lot of people. But even GameStop is starting to run dry. Their wells are starting to run dry, and you're starting to see the same 5, 10 retro games on either their website or on the shelves in their stores, including their retro stores. But there's always something to be had out there. I'm sure you can find something every once in a blue, and I'm sure I'll run into some great deals this year if I'm consistently hunting enough. But I think that's going to be the key. How consistent are you at going out there and seeing if you can find retro video games? The choice is really up to you, and it's really going to boil down to your level of consistency when it comes to finding retro games. But I do think in some ways it's going to be easier, and in some ways it's going to be difficult. And obviously, where you're located is going to be a huge factor in all of that. Now, I just wanted to take these last couple moments to answer a few questions. One of the questions that I got on my channel recently was from a subscriber who asked what app I use to catalog my games. I use this app called GameEye. GameEye is a pretty cool app. It's a great way to just catalog all of the games that you have in your collection. And it kind of helps you from buying the same game twice out in the wild. If you have a larger collection and you want to just kind of keep things in order, you can definitely use it. It's got a lot of features that I'm not going to go into right now, but the main ones that I just really use it for is just my catalog. For one, I definitely use the encyclopedia aspect just to see what other games are out there for the console. And then it also does a good job of just kind of keeping a tally, keeping a value of your collection. And if you're not a person who really cares about value, but you always wonder what your collection is worth, well, GameEye helps you there. It does all the math for you, and it keeps track of things. If game prices go up or if game prices go down, it automatically adjusts the value of the games that you have in your collection. So it's a really cool app, definitely one I recommend. Check it out. I know a lot of people have found it useful. But that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. Let me know what you think about game hunting in 2025. Do you think it's going to get easier or harder, and why? And I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.